Hi, everybody. Hello. Nice to see you all. So I just want to start. Show of hands. Who's a creator in the audience? Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Mostly creators. Who's in tech or distribution? Okay, cool. So some folks in the industry too. This is a talk called Nothing Works. At the movies and at conferences, we hear success stories about heroes and how they did it, and I've always felt a little lied to in these moments, because I doubt that's what most of these heroes' lives have felt like as a person. Since I was a little kid, pretty much everything I've ever done has been a complete trash fire of a failure. And actually, that's not really even true, because my failures are more painful than trash fires. Trash fires are spectacular, at least. My failures have been like ignorable and small and irrelevant. Like, for example, I have boxes of thousands of CDs in my garage that never sold. I've tried to invent camera gear that literally went nowhere. I've spent 2 years working on an album and never got it to the final mix stage because I was just done with it. I've basically had miss after miss after miss after misses after misses after misses in my life, freckled on occasion with a spark of something hopeful, followed by more misses over and over again. This is the truth. This is the norm, and it's not even the norm for being an artist. I found that this is the norm for just being a freaking human being, and yet when we go onto YouTube or when we go to conferences, when we go to movies, when we hear stories, we hear these stories of this like special moment, this snowflake of an instant where like everything clicked and worked for a person, and fuck that shit. I would much prefer to hear a talk about this stuff, the grind. These are the moments where I've grown and I've learned and I've face planted. And so these days I find myself gravitating less towards stories of these random outlying successes and more towards stories of how exactly to deal with the never-ending shit barrage of the human experience. How to deal with this stuff. Yeah, cool. This stuff, day after day after day, right? Because that's life. Most of life is this. And so that's what this talk is about, because at the end of the day, nothing works. Including the current style of this talk. While it is super fun to sync up a new slide every 6 words, this presentation is already 45 slides. And I've only been talking for 105 seconds, which is a little faster than a new slide every 3 seconds. And at this rate, I need 771 slides to talk for 30 minutes. And meanwhile, my calendar is a total mess, and my email inbox is completely unmanageable, and I don't have time to make 771 slides. So there you have it, another shitty idea, but what do you expect? Because nothing works. So I actually am going to stop doing the fast slidey thing now, but the idea of the talk remains the same. Basically, here's what I did. I went through my iPhoto library, and I essentially just picked out all of the things that I ever did that stopped existing. They just fizzled and went nowhere. And I'm going to talk about those things. And then as I was doing that, I realized that it's kind of a boring talk if it's just all the shit. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, too, about the little glimmers of hope that have happened in between. But I'm going to try to focus on the duds. So here you go. Here's all my face plants. This is me as a kid. I got a camera when I was like 12, and I filmed everything. This is me with my mom. I filmed vacations. I filmed hangouts with friends, going places with people. I have now like hundreds of hours of this footage, and I was in a Lyft the other day. Oh, God. And the Lyft driver, turned out he does like transcoding, and he uploads footage and stuff like that. And he told me that Hi8 tapes, which is what I filmed on, only last about 5 years, and then when you play them, they crumble. And I was like, oh shit, that's a fucking dud right there. That's a dud. It's something that never went anywhere and will probably never be seen. Here's another example. God, I spent so many hours making animations as a kid. I'm going to do this so you can see my face. All right. I made so many hours working on animations. I made these sets, this like snowman thing. This was called North Pole Plantation. This is my buddy Adam Cohen. We made these films together. We would put up like a little light. This is in like 2002. It's animation, so you have to like move the eyes with a toothpick, like frame by frame, 24 frames a second. You work all day. You get 3 seconds of footage. So much time and energy. To make the character say something, you have to cut out the mouth with an X-Acto blade, and then you put on a different mouth with like a different vowel sound, and then you smooth over the seams for every frame, 24 frames per second. So much time making these videos, and it was like, this is before YouTube even existed. So literally, I showed my parents and that was it. Like, nobody saw these animations. So another dud, another thing that went nowhere. Okay, this is another dud. This is me in the recording studio with my partner, Thessaly Lerner. And in high school, I got a job as an actor doing a voice for a video game called The Sims 2. And we would go into the studio and we would speak gibberish for like 6 hours. So a lot of people heard our voices, and we thought, let's launch a band out of this. And so we created a band called Now We Have Faces. I know, it was really just please. So we made this band, we put out some records, nothing, another dud in a long stream of duds. Okay, this one is particularly painful. This is an album called Nightmares and Daydreams. I spent 6 months making this album. I was obsessed with every little thing. I spent hours like EQing snare drums and putting notch filters and blah, blah, blah. Even like the cover art, that silhouette there is a clay figure that I made. And like I learned Photoshop to make did it all myself. Nothing. I put it on MySpace. It was getting 3 plays per day. I figured, okay, let me try going on tour, see if I can promote this record. So I go on tour. I booked 4 tours up and down the West Coast, playing shitty bars, mostly to like completely empty rooms. It was really unglamorous. Don't ever tour the Pacific Northwest in the winter. It's not fun. But I learned a lot. Again, playing and trying to get the stuff out there. We called it the 2 Prius tour. I had a Prius, my buddy had a Prius, and most meals looked something like this. That's my buddy Ryan. One night, so he was under 21, and he had a fake ID, and the bouncer caught him, so he couldn't get in to play his own show at the venue. So they wouldn't let him play his own show in the bar. And the headliner also just didn't show up that night. So we had 3 hours booked in this venue, and I had to do it solo, alone. The thing about that is when the headliner doesn't show up, no people come. So this room was a 500-person room. This is the room. This is a photo from that night. I was playing. Yeah, it's real funny, right? It's funny. I was playing. The only person in the room was the bartender. And so I'm up there playing my heart out. I got this accordion, I got a guitar. I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. At the 20-minute mark, the fucking bartender leaves, and I'm literally playing a show to nobody. Like, nobody is in this venue. That's a really bad kind of dud, because you're there, and it hurts like really bad, and you feel the emptiness. Okay, this is a music video that I spent so much time on. The idea was this woman jumps out of a painting, and I fall in love with her, and then it can't work, and she has to go back into the painting. And I built these like cool sets with these animated clouds and these lights that scrolled over the clouds and made it look like a sunset. This video took me 3 months to make. Posted it. It got a little bump and then fizzled and went away. Another big dud. I was living at my dad's house at the time. A little embarrassing. I graduated college. My friends got all these big, high-paying jobs, and I went to live with my dad and try to make music. I was doing a lot of videos for this pedal company called Electro Harmonics. They make guitar pedals. And they were only like $150, but they would send me a pedal for free, and I would make a video. I remember a friend at the time, he was saying, like, Jack, why are you spending like 3 days making a video? It only costs $100, like your time is worth more than that. But I figured maybe the company would promote them, or it would get more exposure or something. It didn't really go anywhere. It was a dud, but I was able to kind of invest in my studio and get more pedals and build up the studio. And again, ultimately, nothing really came from that. Okay. I'm going to talk briefly about the first thing that I ever did that was not a dud. This is a band called Pomplamoose. This is a band that I started with my girlfriend at the time. Now she's my wife. We started uploading in 2007. This is what YouTube looked like in 2008, by the way. I think it's a screenshot of YouTube, 2008. And it was immediately, it felt a little bit different. When we posted a video, YouTube featured on the homepage. Do you remember when YouTube used to feature 10 videos on the homepage? Who remembers that? Yeah. So we got featured on the homepage. We got a big bump. The next time we played a show, 40 people came. 40 people is so much better than no people. It's like so much, it feels so much better. One day we were filming a vlog, and my sister came in with soap. She made soap, little Pomplamoose bars of soap, grapefruit soap. And she was talking about it as we were filming this vlog. And so we just put it in the vlog, and all our fans freaked out. Oh my God, where do we get the Pomplamoose soap? Please give us the soap. That's what our fans sound like. Hello, I'm a fan. So we sold soap, and it worked. People bought soap, and it was amazing. We were actually making some money. We figured, gosh, maybe we can sell other things. So we put all of our music on like a little USB drive. We called it our super useful dongle, and we sold that. We sold a couple hundred of them, I think, in like just a few days. We made a few $1,000. And then something really big happened. We booked a show at a laundromat. And right after we booked that show, we covered Beyonce's Single Ladies. That video got 500,000 views overnight. And when we showed up at the laundromat to play our show, it was a 75-person venue. There were 200 people inside this venue and 150 people like outside looking in through the windows. Literally, I was playing keyboard and there were people right here. Like I was playing a show like this with people here. It was so funny and awesome and such a special night. It felt like something was working for the first time ever. It was so exciting. We put up a record on iTunes. This record was called Tribute to Famous People. It was a bunch of covers. We owned all of our own masters because we didn't sign a record deal. So we owned 100% of our masters. This video sold 30,000 downloads the first month that we put it up, and we got paid $22,000. So, and remember, I'm living at my dad's house, so like, suddenly I had a bank account with $22,000 in it. It was awesome. It was amazing. We reinvested the money in our videos. We've got cool sets, and we like started making costumes, and we got better camera gear, and kept putting out more and more videos, and the videos got better and better, and we went on tour, and hundreds of people started showing up to our shows. This is our first tour poster. We had a bunch of our fans sign our first tour poster. We opened for OK Go in Washington, D.C., which was amazing. Fans started showing up to our shows wearing like custom Pomplamoose merchandise that they had made. We played with Amanda Palmer and the Dresden Dolls at a New Year's Eve show, which was amazing. It was New Year's Eve, Halloween, something like that. It was one of the holidays. More people started showing up to the shows. We were making even more money. We bought a house with basically off of MP3 sales. We moved out of my dad's house, packed up the studio, built a new studio. There was a separate building on this property that was a dog kennel, and we spent so much money building up this studio, putting all the nice soundproofing in there. And right around that time, we got a call from Hyundai. I remember the email. It said, hey, just wondering, have you ever thought about being on TV? And we were like, no, haven't thought about that. They asked us to do a series of Christmas commercials for them, and we ended up doing 3 Christmas commercials for Hyundai. Side note, I think a lot of people, remember this is 2009, 2010, so it was a little bands working with brands. There was like different norms around that back then. I felt very strong. I have very strong opinions about this kind of stuff. I don't think of this as selling out. Maybe it's just because I got paid a bunch of money, but that's not how I view it. For me, selling out is doing something that you're not passionate about. Selling out is not doing your art. That's what selling out is. I believe that in my core. Selling out is when you do something else because you can't do your art anymore. So for me, this was a way to enable Pomplamoose to build our studio, to invest, to actually make something that worked. We put better soundproofing on the walls. We were able to like record string sessions and buy really cool stuff. Like this is me, by the way. I had a little bit more hair back then. We got this organ. This is a C3 organ. It's a tone wheel organ. And God, these instruments are so inspiring, and I loved playing them, and they were amazing. We got this cool barnwood and put it on the walls. It sounded awesome. So yeah, I really view revenue opportunities for an artist as a way to actually empower your dream and make something that you care about and do something that matters to you, as opposed to having to do something else. Around that time, we got a call from Ben Folds. We ended up doing a collab with Ben Folds. This guy is absolutely amazing. I learned so much from him as an artist. He came into our studio. He literally was like playing drums, standing up. I was so like in the box on the rules, and you have to use like this kind of microphone with that kind of shock mount on this kind of mic stand, and like you make sure your impedance matches and use this sort of preamp. And Ben just like gets in there, grabs a condenser microphone with his hand, holds it above the piano, starts playing piano. It's like, Jack, hit record! Like, he's just free, and he doesn't give a fuck. He's such a free spirit. It was so awesome and inspiring to watch him record. We ended up playing with him a few years later at Warfield. The band got better at like marketing ourselves. We took pictures of ourselves. We thought we were super cool. We played bigger shows. This is us playing at the Fillmore in San Francisco a couple years ago. This was such a fun show. That's my wife crowd surfing because she's a badass. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a second. I want to remind folks that this Pomplamoose is one thing out of like a sea of complete things that didn't work, a sea of duds. Pomplamoose was this one bright spot. And not only that, it wasn't like we did it and then everything worked. I mean, I sort of told the story like that, like a story, but that's not what actually happened. It was, even after Pomplamoose came out, things kept not working. There were still more duds that followed something that worked. So we did this live webcast. We tried it for, I think, about 3 or 4 months. We posted every week, and people were coming, but we couldn't make any money from it, and it was so much work to do this planned programmed show every week. We had to shut it down. I was also taking like photos at the time, trying to make like cool photos, and like they combine them and make even cooler photos, and God, nobody cared about these freaking photos. We did a video with our fans. I was so pumped about this video. We did a tweet and asked our fans to show up in this park and learn this dance, and they did, and it was so fun. Like 80 or so fans showed up, and we choreographed this big long video. We posted on YouTube. It just fizzled. I was so surprised. It was so like cool and memey and fun and involved fans. I was also still doing animations at the time, and still lots of duds. This is an animation that I spent like a month on. I built these like weird creature monsters that I just wanted an excuse to like show fruit exploding. So they were like shooting fruit, and I was animating fruit in like, explosion motion. It was so fun to make. I cooked these huge vats of pasta to make the sound effects, and I would like squish my hands into the pasta, and it would like crinkle and make cool squishy explosion sound effects, and all the monsters got gored at the end. No one cared about this video. Absolutely nothing came from it. I learned to dance. I'm a bad dancer. My wife's a good dancer. She did a great job, but this video just did nothing on YouTube. This is probably the most heartbreaking one for me. I meticulously plan out videos, like second by second, and I worked on this one so long. We had this wonderful conceptual plan where everything would go from like grayscale to color, and shapes would go from like simple to complex, and I was so proud and excited about this video. And literally, when we uploaded this video, do you ever have that feeling when you upload a video and you're like, YouTube's not working, like the algorithm, like something wasn't working? I was so upset. I was so sad. It was like the worst performing video we ever put out. Okay, look, my point here is that we kept doing things and they kept not working, even after we had sort of made something that worked. And it doesn't feel any better. It feels exactly like playing in that room. Actually, a little bit worse even, because at least in the room, you have this feeling, if you haven't made a good thing yet, when you're playing in the room by yourself, you're like, well, my future is ahead of me. When you've made something that isn't a dud, and then you make a dud, there's this feeling of like, oh shit, I peaked, like I'm done. And that's terrible. So I've thought a lot about how to deal with this. I've thought a lot about how to deal with the never-ending ship barrage of the human experience, and here's how I think about it. And by the way, I don't mean for this to be prescriptive. I'm not saying here's how you should do it. This is just kind of what I do and what works for me and how it works for me. Especially building a company, building Patreon has been so hard, so much pain. And so I think a lot about like how to manage myself emotionally. So I did another like fast slidey thing because I wanted to be precise with my words here. We all have to deal with our own microfails on a day-to-day basis. So if you think about this as your day-to-day ups and downs, humans are typically terrible at dealing with this moment right here, right when shit starts to go south. It doesn't matter if you spent the last 6 months going up and to the right. The second it starts to turn south, we freak out. So if this is my trajectory as a musician, what I found to be helpful for me personally is thinking about it as smoothing out the curve so that I can ride the long term instead of the day-to-day freakouts. Computers are amazing at smoothing out data. It took my laptop milliseconds to take this data and to turn it into that curve. Humans suck at this. We suck at smoothing out data. We have billions of years of evolutionary biology that induces freak-out mode at the slightest threat. The slightest bump when you think maybe that's the last good idea I'll ever have, maybe that's the last time I'll ever make something good, maybe that's the last licensing deal, that's the last good song, that's the last dollar I'll ever make. We have this reaction because there's this densely packed collection of neurons. I'm about to talk about fight or flight mode. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. It's in your amygdala, which is part of your limbic system. And your limbic system is responsible for regulating your emotions and motivation, behavior, that kind of stuff. But when a human perceives a threat, like a bump in the road, your amygdala starts activating a bunch of glands, one of which is your adrenal gland, which secretes a hormone that results in the production of epinephrine, which is also known as adrenaline. And adrenaline is a drug that is really used to, it's literally for a person who's had a heart attack. You can shoot them with adrenaline and it like jump starts your heart, like it gives you a huge rush. That's what happens when your body enters freak-out mode. You get a dose of medicine that's used to treat freaking heart attacks. The resulting catastrophe is acceleration of heart and lung action. Your digestion stops. Your sphincters tighten. You get constriction of your blood vessels. Your adrenaline gets all up in your liver. It releases glucose into your blood. You get an insta-sugar high. If you're a dude, your shit stops working. You get auditory loss. You get paling and flushing. The benefit to your body is that you get better blood flow to your muscles, you get increased blood pressure to give you more energy, you get faster blood clotting in case a limb gets torn off, you get better muscle tension for more like speed and strength, and all of this is super awesome if you're running from a lion, and it sucks if you're just an artist trying to deal with another dud. So when I get to this moment now, and my idea fails, and I feel threatened and scared, 1 billion years of biology kicks in and tries to initiate that whole freaking hormone cascade, and it tries to freak me out. And that's when I try to stop and zoom out, welcome the new dud to the club, and all of the accompanying feelings, and I try to trust logic instead of adrenaline. And I'm not great at doing this every time. I've gotten a little bit better at, when you're at a startup, you have to get good at this because every day the best thing and the worst thing of your life happens, like within an hour. And I'm surrounded at Patreon by people who are amazing at this, that I can learn from. One of those folks is Tyler Palmer, who's our Vice President of Operations. I want to read a quick snippet of a letter of recommendation that I wrote about Tyler. He's a special, very special human being. Being a VP Ops at a growing startup is like crossing a sinking field of mud with zero visibility, no clothes, and in the middle of a hurricane. It takes a special person who has the guts to do it in the first place, has the gall to pick a direction and run, and repeatedly face plants on a daily basis, only to look up, spitting mud and laughing with a full heart and a savage appetite for the next plunge. That's Tyler. He has more grit than a bowl of grits. It's a stupid way to end it, but the point stands. This guy has grit. By the way, I'll point out that it's worth noting that this ability that some people have to be unfazed by things, right? This would obviously be like a terrible thing if humans still lived in the wild, right? Like imagine if your emotions and your reactions to things were averages over time instead of instant threats and fears. You'd see a lion in a field and you'd be like, well, actually on the whole, I feel pretty like positive about everything. And then the lion comes and your like face gets torn off. And the tragedy of this is that as a species, we prefer smooth experiences. We do. We prefer smoothness. It's just more pleasant than the day-to-day ups and downs that fill our bodies with heart-pumping, digestion-stopping, sphincter-closing chemicals that make us want to sit back and give up. No one wants a bumpy flight, but life is turbulence. And grit is that ability to smooth out the curve. Grit is the ability to self-apply an automobile suspension to the bumpy off-road adventures that make up our days. And it doesn't mean not feeling the highs, right? I still feel excited about things. It just means that when your body starts to enter freak-out mode, you can kind of recognize it and go along and stop that hormone cascade from taking place. Okay, I'm going to go back to the story now. This is the part of the story where Pomplamoose is starting to do great. We're also doing a lot of duds. But I start thinking about this concept called what I call the discrepancy. This is the gap between what, at least my perception of what artists and creators are worth in the world and our paychecks that we get at the end of the month. That's what I'm about to talk about. That's a messed up problem. And it's way too wide. I can't believe it that we're in 2018 and there's still this huge gap between the passion and the energy and the attention and the watch time and the engagement and the audience love and all of that. And then you get the paycheck at the end of the month. And that gap is what I want to talk about. Here's an example. Natalie and I, one year, a couple years ago, did a book drive for the Richmond School District that's in the North Bay, or East Bay, in the San Francisco Bay Area. We said, look, if you buy a book for the Richmond School District, we'll give you our EP for free. Simple. Get a book for the school district, you get our EP for free. And the school district had to rent a shipping container to keep up with the packages. We uploaded one video with this proposition for our fans. It was $140,000 worth of books. 11,000 packages got sent to the Richmond School District. And they just kept coming for over a month. It was so many books. Around the same time, I took a screenshot of my YouTube dashboard. It's not exactly the same time, a couple years later. But this is what I log in when I see as an artist. 1 million views in a 28-day, this is a 28-day trailing thing, 1 million views, 2 million minutes of watch time, and $166 of ad earnings. And I see this and I don't buy it. I don't buy that my impact on the world is worth this. Because I leave something like that Richmond School District book drive and it feels altruistically good, and there's a selfish component of it too. It feels selfish. I feel like, gosh, I can make things happen. It feels good. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it's I'm no delusions of grandeur. We're not Coldplay, we're not Lady Gaga, but we evidently have impact, and that excites me. And it's not being reflected in dashboards like this. By the way, I know YouTube is working on this, and I'm very excited about that. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. My point is, that's what I mean by this discrepancy. It wasn't always there, right? It wasn't always there. When fans got involved, like my wife did a Kickstarter campaign. She raised $100,000 on Kickstarter. We used to do these shows on Stage It. You could buy tickets to a web stream, and then fans could tip over the web stream, and we would make $2,000 in a 45-minute show. It was awesome. The pattern that I noticed is when fans valued me more than tech companies valued me. Whenever fans got involved, I felt like the discrepancy disappeared. Okay. So this realization led to the second non-dud, which I'll talk about, which is the beginning of Patreon. Has everybody heard of Patreon? I'm just curious. Who's heard of Patreon? Oh, wow, cool. Okay, awesome. That's the second non-dud of my life. 2 in a sea of duds. Okay. The story starts with working on this music video. My wife signed a record deal, went off to tour the world. I started working on a music video. I was listening to a lot of Skrillex at the time, and the idea was I wanted to make this EDM music video where I'm in the center of the room. I was going to build a rotating elevator over here, a rotating elevator over there, and robots were going to come out of the elevators, walk forward, and play electronic music with me, and we all be hanging out playing EDM together. That was the vision for the video. I was super excited about it. So I start putting this together and building the elevators. The plans get more and more complicated. And I'm spending, 12, 13-hour days in my studio by myself. I build this pulley system that I got from Amazon to make these elevators go up. That doesn't work. I tried rollerblade wheels. That didn't work. I finally got a self-elevating desk, but that was like $400. I'm taking like daily trips to Home Depot now. It's costing me maybe $150, every time I go, and I'm spending more and more money. I'm a few $1,000 in at this point. Then I decide I want to build a replica of the Millennium Falcon cockpit behind me as we're doing all this. So I get to work framing a wall, and I start building the second elevator here and sculpting these panels. All of this stuff, these are washers that I got on eBay. I bought 1,000 washers on eBay and I spray painted them silver. This, right here, this is just Sharpie, and this is a piece of cardboard that I spray painted black. Everything, it took hours to make each one of these panels. I was now spending probably 13, 14, 15-hour days in my studio. I started documenting it because I had this feeling about halfway through. I'd maxed out one credit card. I was about a month and a half, 2 months in, maybe $6,000 or $7,000 in at this point. And I thought to myself, I'm going to upload this video. It's going to get 1 million views, and I'm going to get paid $200. And I couldn't stomach. I broke. It broke me. I couldn't stomach the idea of doing that. I couldn't take it. And I have this little black book where I draw out ideas. And one of the ideas that I draw out was just, Jack is making videos. Give Jack $1 per video. And I love that little line beneath it. Digital asset monetization. Not available right now. That was really a gross way to talk about it, but this was the very first idea of Patreon. I called it my freshman year roommate. I sort of drew it out on about 14 pieces of printer paper, and this is my roommate, Sam. He got so excited about the idea, he started coding it that night. I went back to the studio and started building more and more of these panels and putting them up on the walls, and the set sort of finally came together. Sam was suffering for a whole different set of reasons, building the V1 of our code base. He is a totally disgusting slob, and I love showing these photos. It takes everything out. He puts everything into making this work. This is my favorite photo of Sam. This is how I think of him during that time period. He was literally sleeping, and then he'd wake up for an hour and code, and sleep and wake up and code. Just unbelievable output. I was suffering in my own way. Again, Natalie's gone at this point on tour, so I'm hoarding garbage and going to junkyards and finding cool stuff for the set. And these are my hands after about 3 months of working on this video by myself. I'm doing 19-hour days, and I've got latex gloves on for 19 hours. This just happens to your hands. I wrote this blog post at the time called I'm Fucking Terrified. I want to read a snippet of this blog post to give you a sense of where my head was at. I was going crazy during this. Here's just a quick snippet. This situation is foreign to me. Usually, I'm careful. I'm a well-educated son of a doctor from the suburbs. I make good decisions. But the consistent weight of choices, the financial discretion, the same good sense that has kept me afloat as an artist would keep me from making this video. After all, there's zero potential return on investment, right? So at the beginning of this process, I decided to bury my sculpted prudence in the backyard for a month. Maybe I'll dig it up when this video is finished, but right now, it only stands between me and my fun little art project. That's what it feels like to me. I'm gluing frosty paper onto washers. I'm cutting cardboard boxes and spray painting them silver. And all the while, I'm watching my savings melt into nothing. I feel like a guilty child slotting quarter after quarter into a shiny arcade. At the end of the day, I spent about $10,000 on this video, I think. I never added it up. I was too afraid. I did max out 2 credit cards along the way. But the set came together, the video came together. I'm going to show you a quick clip. I won't make you listen to my music, but this is what it ended up looking like. That is a fully robotic animatronic head that was actually singing the lyrics to the song. This guy from a hobbyist roboticist from the UK built it. Coming out of the second elevator on the left, that one is a 3D printed hexapod robot. A guy from the University of Tucson built it from scratch. I'm in the center elevator here playing guitar, and the guy from the University of Tucson did all the inverse kinematics for this hexapod and got it to actually dance to the beat of the music. I worked so hard on this video. It was the best thing I ever made in my life. At the end of the video, so I posted the video. At the end of the video, I did a plea to my fans. I said, hey, I'm trying this thing called Patreon. You're the first people. Who knows what's going to happen? Join me. And I I told fans about it. Within about 2 weeks, I was making a little over $5,000 per video, which was so much better than $166. And at the same time, right then, the CEO of Electro Harmonics, you remember that pedal company I was telling you about earlier in this presentation? I featured a lot of the pedals in the video, not because they paid me. I just loved the pedals, and Jack Johnson wrote a song about his surfboards, and I wanted to write a song about my guitar pedals. The pedals were in the video, and the CEO of Electro Harmonics saw it and got so excited he sent me a check for $5,000. He just sent me a check. So $5,000 from my fans and the $5,000 from this company, and my world just turned right side up in like 2 weeks. The video was paid for. And it was this incredible realization for me of the power of patronage, the power of membership. Sam went back to building the next versions of the code base. We started launching these amazing creators. We didn't do any sales or marketing. We launched with just me, my girlfriend, and my roommate. That was it. But creators started seeing us making money, like literally 200 times as much money you make from ad revenue, and they started launching on the platform. We launched this wonderful illustrator who makes, he calls it morning scribbles. It's just friendly monster drawings. He makes one every morning. This is a guy named The Professor. He does Magic the Gathering reviews, like reviews of Magic the Gathering, the card game. It's awesome. The team got back to work. We were about 7 people for the first couple years. So just like a mess. We were in a 2-bedroom apartment by ourselves, trying to figure out what to do and how to build. Sam was still coding from bed, literally, like coding from bed. We were getting hundreds of emails from creators and patrons asking for features, and can you add PayPal, and can you do this, can you do that? We were literally answering hundreds of support tickets. We'd go all hours of the late night and morning. I remember when we hit $100,000 pledged to creators, $100,000. We went and raised a round of financing. We signed our term sheet for the $15 million round of financing at a Lindsey Sterling concert, one of my favorite YouTube creators. Moved into an office, got a bigger team. Now Patreon is over 150 people. We have a 50,000 square foot office in San Francisco, and we're launching these huge creators that are doing amazing things. This is a group called Kind of Funny. They have 2 Patreon pages, and I think are making like over $50,000 a month. They have a big team now, 15 or 20 folks. They have a lease and an office space. They're building a media company. It's amazing. We have folks like Issa Rae. She's got her own HBO show. Hank and John Green are on Patreon. Phil DeFranco is on Patreon. Chapo Trap House, this is a podcast. It's 3 guys. They're making over $100,000 a month, $100,000 a month for this podcast. And at the same time, YouTube and Facebook have started basically building Patreon into their platforms. I think a lot of people think that I'm worried about this. I'm not worried, I'm not angry. I'm excited that companies are finally starting to hear the pain that we've been talking about for a decade and finally starting to rally and build monetization tools. I think it's so important. And I think it's going to bring awareness to the importance of membership and fan-supported work. At the end of the day, so this year, Patreon's going to send $300 million to creators. In the last 5 years, we've sent over $350 million to creators. I'm super proud of this. I'm super excited. It's been an amazing ride. And like it's one, again, I'm telling stories here, but I'm always reminding myself this is one thing that I've done out of millions that have failed. And again, after Patreon, I've done more things that have continued to fail. I'm obsessed with Casey Neistat, and I've started a daily vlog, and nobody watched my vlogs. They went nowhere. I had to shut it down. I'm also obsessed with Rhett and Link, and I started a morning show with my wife, and I love Good Mythical Morning, and yeah, this morning show just fizzled. I built a pizza oven in my backyard. This pizza oven sucks. I mean, it makes the worst pizza. I don't know how you make bad pizza. We make really bad pizza in this pizza oven. I think I will stop making duds when I stop making things, and that's going to be when I die. I'll finish by rewinding to a few years ago. I was trying to buy that house that I told you about earlier, the one with the dog kennel that I ended up converting into a studio. The bank was refusing to give me a loan because I didn't have a monthly paycheck from an employer. And I was so frustrated. I was at my wit's end with this freaking bank, just not willing to give me this loan, even though I had enough income. I had a conversation with a friend who said, Jack, some things aren't meant to be. Fast forward another few years, Patreon just launched. Within a week of launching, we get an email from the CEO of another company who says that Patreon, the name Patreon, is too close to his company's name. And we write back and we beg and we plead, and 2 weeks later we get an email from a lawyer saying it's a cease and desist letter, and we have to change our name or shut down Patreon. And the point of this story, and the point of this whole thing really, is that if your attitude is some things aren't meant to be, you'll never push anything through. Everybody gets thrown off the horse. Everyone plays shows to empty rooms. Everyone has a dream that they can't get a loan for. Everyone gets emails telling them that their plans won't work. But the duds are not signs. No one is telling us to stop. The universe isn't giving us instructions. We can always choose to get back up. This was my mother. Her name's Michelle Conte. She died about 8 years ago after a 2.5-year fight with pancreatic cancer. She was an amazing mom, an incredible performer. She went way overboard at Halloween, way overboard. Even after she was diagnosed, she would drive out to the fields of Marin, where I grew up, and she would feed these stray cats that lived in the area. She was part of this organization that would feed cats. And her job was to find and feed these 2 cats in particular that lived in this very particular area. The cat never showed its face, though, so she never found one of these cats. I don't have a picture, but let's fake it. Let's call the cat Alex. So all she could sort of hope was that, that Alex would kind of find the food where she put it before some other wild animal would find it. And one day after she came back from a scan which showed a recurrence of the cancer in her abdomen, she came home after one of these cat feeding expeditions. She was so excited, she was buzzing. And she said, Jack, you'll never believe what happened. I was outside looking for the 2 cats, and I just stopped and closed my eyes, and I started to pray. I said, God, if I'm going to be okay, then give me a sign. If I'm going to make it through, give me some sign. Just give me anything to let me know that I'm going to make it. And when she opened her eyes, she turned around to put the food down, and right next to her was Alex. She started crying as she was telling me this story, and she asked me if I thought it was the sign. I honestly don't remember what I said. I don't remember what I said in that moment. She died about a year later, and I always remember this story and that moment because it felt off to me. It felt like the universe stopped working in that instant. It was too unfair to be true. And I've found solace over the years in my takeaway from this story. It's not that I don't believe in God. It's not that life is unfair. It's just that our lives are not stories. They aren't perfectly sequenced romantic novels. There's no signs telling you to do this or to do that. There's no predestined guidance. There's just sheer human will, just voracious ambition, just forcing something through when it doesn't work, just unbound struggle, just the awesomeness of humans deciding to keep going. That's what it is. And that's the best that any of us can sort of do. It's just deciding to keep going after the duds. It's hard, and it's always going to be hard. And I believe that there's nothing more awesome and nothing more important than getting back up. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.